It is currently May 1st, 2022. It's about 9 a.m. It's a Sunday, and it's a rainy day today. I don't know that you can see or tell, but it is a dark and rainy day. And I have lost internet at home. Wi-Fi is not working. Oh well. But yeah, anyway, because it is relatively dark and rainy today, um, probably not going to go birding. Um, there are other reasons too. I've said I'm on call this weekend, and I'm actually expecting to have to go in sometime today. So yeah, I'm just gonna hang around the house. Um, Now, because it is somewhat dark, I have gone ahead and put the Sony 55-300 on my A6400. Um, you know, I'll probably have to make a separate video about this, but I find this lens tends to work the best on my SLT or SLR style camera, the Alpha 65. But that said, it still does work okay on my A6400. I just don't find the keeper rate to be as high. But that said, in lower light conditions, um, this thing beats the Alpha 65 hands down. Like the Alpha 65, I just saw a white-throated sparrow near my house, near my front yard. And so I took some pictures with the Alpha 65. I had to go to ISO 6400, and it was pretty dark because it was a little bit earlier, maybe about half an hour or so earlier. So we had even less light, and like I was shooting at 1/400 of a second, wide open at like 5.6. And yeah, I was still having to go to ISO 6400, and the images at ISO 6400 are so noisy and ugly. Yeah, it's basically useless to take pictures when you're pushing those kind of ISO numbers. Whereas with this guy, the A6400, I can comfortably shoot even up to 20,000 ISO and still have decent images. So yeah, the autofocus performance is not quite as good on the Alpha 6400, but at least on these dark days with high ISOs, it's probably the better camera to use. I'll probably make a separate video about all of that. Now, I did want to say something else that I'm seeing as a kind of problem with Ebird, because I do probably most of my bird watching at home. Just that's because that's where I am, right? Yeah, I spend more of my time here, and I've got a feeder set up at home. But the thing is, I don't want to log the birds that I see here with my address, right? And so I'm in this weird situation now where like I'm not quite sure what to do. I mean, so far, I only started using eBird yesterday, and I've only logged maybe a couple of birds from my house. But like, I was like, I don't want to use my home address. I don't want people showing up here looking for birds. And so I just put it at a green space that is nearby. So yeah, I think that is an issue with eBird, is that they should probably have some option where they can give an approximate location rather than like an exact address for where you spot birds. Yeah, so another problem with eBird, besides the whole address thing, is that you feel more compelled to log birds that you don't see very often, but there are plenty of birds that you see constantly that you may not log, right? And um, so the data in terms of how common they are uh, is obviously not going to be very accurate, or where they are spotted. Like I see a ton of cardinals, blue jays, crows, but I'm not logging those. And you know, people may be under the impression that they're not that common here, right? I think most people that live in the area will know that they're common. But if you're like visiting a place, for example, maybe you're doing a trip for bird watching, you may not know how common some of these birds are because people aren't logging them. It would be just too much work to constantly be logging those birds. And one of the options when you log is to put the number of birds, and sometimes you can't accurately count how many there are. So yeah, in terms of a data gathering tool, it's nice. It's probably the best that we have, but there are some inherent sort of inaccuracies with this thing. And it's something that happens in the scientific process of research, no matter what field we're talking about, not just birds. How you collect the data is oftentimes not as robust as you might think. So yeah, another thing I want to talk about really quickly is that I've been really eyeing the Tamron 150 to 500 millimeter lens as a birding lens, because I find that the 300 millimeter reach it's like okay for bird feeder photography. Let me walk over to my bird feeder. Like if you're like this kind of distance from the bird feeder, 300 millimeters is fine. But I'll show you my other bird feeder. So yeah, I have a bird feeder out there too. There's not currently any seed in it, but yeah, I have a bird feeder that kind of distance, and already 300 millimeters is not enough for this. And so if you want to look for birds in like even this kind of backyard with your 300 millimeter lens, it's not long enough. And let alone if we're going out to a park to try and find birds. So yeah, I've really been tempted to get a lens with a longer reach. And after doing some research, I think the Tamron 150 to 500 is probably the way to go. Because, there are some other ones like the Sigma 150 to 600 millimeter lenses that are also okay and have a bit of a longer reach. But those sort of budget zooms I think they're all based on SLR designs. So they're big and heavy, and I don't, at least from what I've seen in reviews and stuff, they don't focus the best with mirrorless cameras. They work all right with SLR cameras, but yeah, just struggle a little bit with the mirrorless cameras. And it's not that they're bad; it's just that I think with mirrorless cameras, the potential is much better. And this Tamron 150 to 500 is a strictly mirrorless design, and it's a nice budget, long telephoto zoom. 500 millimeters is not quite 600, but like on an APS-C body, I think it's still long enough, right? And Yeah, but the problem is, this is the real point I'm trying to get to is, um, I've I've been a little bit hesitant to jump right in because it's still a decent chunk of change, and this is a very new hobby for me, and I don't know how long I'm going to be doing it. Right? It takes a lot of time, and when you have a kid, you don't have a ton of time. I've mostly been doing just bird feeder photography. Um, but the other issue is that right now I don't know that reach is necessarily the problem. Like I went out yesterday to look for birds, and it's ridiculous how hard it is to find them. Like you can see with your eyes like little movements, and you might be able to catch a bird like over there, but then you like pull up your binoculars to try and find it. It's hard. It's hard. And even if you don't have a binocular, you're pointing your camera trying to find that bird is hard. It's like so often there's a bird right there. I can see it. It's actually sitting still. But I'm pointing my camera, looking around, I still can't find it. So, getting a better lens, getting a longer lens, isn't necessarily going to help me with that, right? That's not the pain point right now for me. So, yeah. But I definitely got gear acquisition syndrome bad. I'm really, really tempted to get that Tamron lens. But what I want to do is try my hand at field bird photography a little bit more, going out and giving it a go, because number one, I just want to see if I can even do it consistently, with regards to time. And then I want to know if I can even find birds. If I find that like my skills are improving and I'm able to see a bird and then find it consistently with my 300 mil, then maybe I'll look into getting something with a longer reach. But yeah, it's tough. And my current lens starts at 55, so it's nice and wide. Like when I look at something and I look through the viewfinder at 55 millimeters, it almost looks like the same thing as what my eyes see. And even then, when I zoom in, I still have a hard time finding the damn bird. Yeah, it's crazy. Some birds are brightly colored, and you think that they'd be easy to find, but no. If they don't move, it's very difficult to find them. And it's only going to get more difficult because we're heading into spring and summer, and trees are going to start filling up with leaves. So it's going to be harder to find these birds. You can definitely hear them, but finding them, actually seeing them, it's going to be hard. The thing also about photography, bird photography, is that you not only have to find the bird, in this sort of X and Y type of axis, like you have to find it, inside the field of view. You have to find it in terms of distance too, because your focus is based on distance. That's what makes it so hard. And on top of the fact that they constantly move, and in a time that you to pull up your binoculars, they probably already jumped to a different branch, and some of them are just well camouflaged, or like just brown, and they're very small. Just so many reasons. It's not the gear right now, I don't think, that is preventing me from taking pictures. Like I'm all right now to take crappy pictures. I just want to be able to find the bird to take the picture. Yeah, I don't know. Once I get better, I might invest in the Tamron 150 to 500 then. All right, I gotta head in to the hospital, but I just saw a yellow warbler. It was very high up in the trees. It was just going really, really quickly between branches, and then it flew away. Unfortunately, I did not get a picture. It was so quick, but I just saw a tiny little bird and it was a flash of yellow. I managed to find it with the binoculars, so I got a positive ID on it. Just a completely yellow bird, so it doesn't have any black on it like the goldfinch. And yeah, nice. I logged it on Ebird, but unfortunately, no picture. All right, it's 8:30 at night, and I'm back home. My case went well at the hospital, and yeah, I didn't really do any bird watching when I got back. Just not very good weather. It was actually just thunderstorming just a few minutes ago. So yeah, no bird watching. I will say though, I did catch a hawk earlier today. It was circling around outside. I was only here very briefly. It was doing circles, and so I had just enough time to grab my camera and take some pictures. But you know, it was still pretty far and high, and you know, it was there were branches between me and the bird, and so I couldn't use autofocus. I had to use manual focus anyway. So they weren't the best pictures ever, but I did get a picture, a couple pictures, and I think it's either a red-shouldered or a broad-shouldered hawk. And the reason is because the tail is, it's got bands on the undersurface. I didn't have enough light to see what the color of the undersurface of wings were. So yeah, but yeah, anyway, it's cool. That's a new bird for me. I have seen red-tailed hawks. This most definitely isn't a red-tailed hawk, so it's a new raptor for me. All right, so I'm gonna end it here. I'll see you in the next one.